You wake up to pain. Not from a fight, not yet, just from the bed itself. If you can even call it a bed, it's a slab of straw on a wooden frame, crawling with lice, reeking of sweat, piss and blood. Your muscles ache from yesterday's drills. Your back burns where the trainer's rod landed. Your lips are dry. Your stomach growls. This is your first morning as a gladiator in the Ludus, the Gladiator barracks, and the truth is simple. You're already not surviving. The air is heavy. Men cough in their bunks. Chains rattle. Somewhere, a man groans in pain, or maybe in fever. The smell is a stew of unwashed bodies, iron shackles, stale bread, and the faint tang of dried blood. This is not a home. This is a holding pen for animals. Rome will throw into the sand what the Ludus was. The Ludus was the gladiator school, the place where men were trained and broken before the games. There were many across Rome. The most famous, the Ludus Magnus, built by Emperor Domitian right next to the Colosseum. Underground tunnels even linked the two, so gladiators could be marched from their barracks directly into the arena like cattle. Here, gladiators slept, trained, ate, healed and waited for their turn in the sand. It was part prison, part barracks, part slaughterhouse. Cells lined the walls, some with iron bars. A central training yard baked under the sun. A small infirmary patched men back together. The air was never quiet, always groaning, coughing, shouting, striking wood on wood. You don't feel like a trainee, you feel like meat being fattened or starved for spectacle. Who you're with. Look around your barracks. The faces staring back at you are a mix of fear, rage, and hollow resignation. Slaves, captured in war or sold by desperate families. Criminals, condemned to die in the arena for entertainment. Volunteers, men so desperate for food, fame, or money that they chose this. It doesn't matter which you are. In here you're the same, a gladiator in training, property of your Lannister, the owner of the school. You're worth less than the food they feed you, and worth more once you bleed in the sand. Survival POV, the sound of mourning. You sit up. The iron collar on your neck scrapes your skin. The man in the bunk beside you snores, breath wheezing like a broken bellows. Another man sharpens a wooden sword, muttering to himself. A guard stomps past, iron-shod sandals clanging, whip in hand. He bangs on the wooden posts, shouting in Latin. You don't understand every word, but you don't need to. The meaning is clear. Up, dogs. Chains clink as men shuffle out of their bunks. You follow, because hesitation earns lashes. The Lannisters control. The Lannister is the master of this place. He buys, trains and sells gladiators like livestock. To him you are both investment and expendable commodity. He feeds you enough to fight, not enough to thrive. He pushes you hard enough to entertain, not hard enough to collapse before the show. He decides whether you fight next week, next month, or never. He decides if you're worth patching up after a wound, or if you'll just be left to rot in straw. And he decides one more thing, whether you deserve hope. The faint hope of freedom, of the wooden sword called the rudis. Don't fool yourself, you'll never hold it. The first meal. You shuffle toward the eating hall. A clay bowl is shoved into your hands, sloshing with thick barley porridge. A hunk of bread lands in the bowl with a splash. A mug of sour vinegar water, Posca, follows. That's it. No meat, no honey, no olive oil, just fuel. Gladiators were called hordeari, barley men. Cheap, filling, muscle-building food for men. Rome only needed to last a few fights. You choke it down. It tastes like ashes and grit. Your stomach protests, but you keep chewing. Hunger is the one battle you can win here. Sardonic reflection, your modern breakfast. You like your eggs, your coffee, your bagel toasted just right. Here, you get beans, barley and vinegar water. You scroll on your phone during breakfast. Here, you watch a guard pick his teeth with a knife while eyeing you like cattle. You complain when your latte is lukewarm. Here, lukewarm is the best you'll ever get. You wouldn't survive this first meal. You'd gag, spit, refuse. They'd beat you until you ate. And you'd eat anyway. Training looms. The sound of wood on wood begins outside. Men grunt, shout, strike. The trainers are already at work, forcing men to swing wooden swords. Heavy, brutal, designed to exhaust. You glance toward the yard. The sun is already high. The sand shimmers with heat. The sound of whip cracks cuts the air. You feel sick. But there is no escape. Your first step's outside. The guard slams his whip against the wall. You shuffle into the sunlight. It blinds you. The training yard is a circle of sand, ringed with posts. Dozens of men are already sweating, striking, stumbling. A trainer shouts, raising a staff. One man drops his sword, gasping. The staff slams into his back. He collapses. The others keep swinging. You clutch your own wooden sword. It feels heavier than stone. Your hands blister instantly. Your arms ache. The trainer shouts. You swing again, and again, and again. Every strike feels like your last. Every breath feels stolen. You're not a gladiator. You're a prisoner learning to dance for Rome. The audience you haven't seen yet. Above the walls of the Ludus, the Colosseum looms. You can't see it now, but you feel it. Its shadow is everywhere. 50,000 Roman citizens waiting to scream, to cheer, to demand blood. Right now, you train in silence except for shouts and whips. But soon, their roar will drown even your heartbeat. And they will decide if you live or die. The truth of your first day. You think you'd rise to the occasion. You've watched movies, played games, imagined yourself in armor. But the reality is here, now. You're chained. You're chained. You're starved. You're beaten before you've even fought. You're already exhausted. The truth? You wouldn't survive. Not even the training week. Not even this first day. Rome didn't need you to live. Rome only needed you to bleed. As the sun burns your skin, as the whip cracks, as the wooden sword blisters your hands, you realize you are not a man in Rome. You are an object, a pawn, a spectacle in waiting. And when the Colosseum calls, you will walk into the sand with no choice but to play your part. You wouldn't survive the Ludus, and if by chance you did, you'd wish you hadn't. You shuffle barefoot into the training yard. The sand is already hot, though the sun has only just risen. Dust clings to your ankles, sweat gathers at your temples, and the wooden sword in your hands feels impossibly heavy. Around you, dozens of other men are already swinging, striking, stumbling. The air is filled with shouts, grunts, and the crack of staff against flesh when someone falters. You thought you'd learn to fight like the movies, swords flashing, shields raised, glorious duels. Instead, your reality is this: removal, a heavy wooden sword, ruddy, twice the weight of a real blade. Endless repetitions of the same strikes until your arms feel like lead, and a trainer ready to beat you down the moment you slack. Welcome to gladiator training. It isn't glamorous. It's punishment disguised as preparation. The purpose of brutality. The Ludi gladiator schools weren't gyms. They were factories of violence. Training swords were deliberately heavier, so a real blade would feel light by comparison. Wooden weapons caused bruises and broken bones without spilling blood. Cheaper for the Lannister. Endless drills built endurance and obedience, not just skill. Gladiator training wasn't designed to make you a master swordsman. It was designed to make you spectacle ready, fast enough to thrill, strong enough to swing, obedient enough to entertain. You aren't being taught to win. You're being taught to die well. Wooden sword in your hands. You lift the rudis. Your palms blister instantly. The wood bites your skin, splinters digging in. Sweat slicks your grip. You swing once, twice. Your arms shake. The trainer screams. You swing again. The weight jars your shoulder. A staff slams against your back. Punishment for faltering. Pain shoots down your spine. You swing harder. Your breath rasps. The sand swallows your feet. Your vision blurs with sweat. You feel yourself collapsing. The trainer doesn't care. You're a body, a tool, a future corpse. The trainers, doctores, and drill masters. Each school had doctores, specialized trainers for different fighting styles. Doctores gladii, sword masters. Doctores armorum, weapons instructors. Doctores harene, veterans who taught the art of performing in the arena. These weren't kindly teachers. They were ex-gladiators themselves, brutal men who knew survival meant perfection. They barked orders, beat mistakes, and demanded absolute obedience. They didn't care about your pain. They cared about your posture, your strike, your spectacle, weapons and styles. Gladiators weren't all the same. Each man was trained in a specific style, often based on body type or what the Lannister thought would entertain. Murmillo, heavy shield. Gladius, fish-crested helmet. Thrax, curved sword. Seeker, small shield, high-crested helmet. Reticarius, net, trident, no helmet. Bestiarius, fought animals, often barely armed at all. You don't get to choose. The Lannister decides. Maybe you're big, so they give you the heavy shield. Maybe you're thin, so they throw you in with a net against lions. You're not a man, you're a role in Rome's bloody theatre. Survival POV, learning the role. Your helmet is shoved onto your head. The metal is hot, stinking of sweat. Vision narrows to 2 eye slits. You can barely breathe. The wooden shield they strap to your arm feels like another body. You stumble under its weight. The trainer roars. Strike, block, step, again. Strike, block, step, again. Your world is reduced to sand under your feet, splinters in your palms, sweat stinging your eyes, and the constant fear of the staff slamming your back. You thought you'd fight like a hero. Instead, you're a puppet with strings made of pain. The grueling schedule. Training wasn't an hour at the gym. It was the entire day. Morning, drills with wooden weapons. Midday, footwork, sparring, shield practice. Afternoon, more drills, more sparring, running laps in sand. Evening, conditioning, wrestling, sometimes animal training. You collapse into your bunk at night, muscles screaming, skin raw, lungs heaving. There's no time for recovery, only survival. Sardonic reflection, your modern workout. You pay money to swing kettlebells for 30 minutes. You post your gym selfie after leg day. Here, leg day is every day, arm day is every day, pain day is every day. You have protein shakes, water fountains and treadmills. Here, you have barley mush, vinegar water, and a trainer ready to beat you for yawning. You wouldn't survive gladiator training. You'd collapse in the sand and never get up again. Injuries in training. Broken bones were common. Dislocated shoulders, snapped wrists, shattered ribs. Gladiators trained until they bled, not metaphorically, literally. Splinters pierced palms, staffs left bruises, swords gashed faces. Rome had doctors on hand, yes, but not for your comfort. Their job was to patch you just enough to keep training. Honey on wounds, vinegar on infections, crude splints for broken bones. Survival wasn't healing. Survival was limping forward, the collapse. Your vision narrows. You swing again, but the sword drops from your hand. Your knees buckle. You hit the sand. The trainer's staff slams into your ribs. Pain explodes. You gasp. Men around you keep swinging. No one dares stop. The trainer shouts in your ear. Spittle flies. You scramble for the sword. Your hand trembles. You swing again. You're not training. You're breaking. Entertainment above all. Remember this. Rome didn't train gladiators for their survival. It trained them for the crowd's entertainment. Precision mattered more than power. Drama mattered more than victory. A well-timed stumble could win more cheers than a perfect strike. The trainers knew this. They weren't teaching you to live. They were teaching you to perform your death beautifully. Sardonic reflection. Your first week. By the end of the first week, your body is wrecked. Blisters split, muscles tear, ribs ache. You've eaten nothing but beans and barley. You've drunk nothing but sour vinegar water. You've slept in lice-ridden straw. You think you're getting stronger. You're not. You're just being hammered into shape like a dull piece of iron, meant to break beautifully in front of 50,000 screaming Romans. You wouldn't survive the first week, and if by some miracle you did, you wouldn't wish to. Closing reflection of Section 2. Training in the ludus wasn't a path to glory. It was a slow death in sand and sweat. The wooden sword in your hands was heavier than hope. The whip at your back was sharper than mercy. The cheers of the Colosseum were still distant, but their shadow already fell across your bruised body. You thought training made heroes. Rome knew better. Training made corpses that knew how to fall. And you'd fall faster than most. The bell clangs. Not the bell of freedom, the bell of food. You shuffle in line with the others, clutching your empty bowl. The air smells faintly of smoke, sour vinegar and stale bread. Your stomach growls. It's not hunger anymore. Hunger, you know. This is something deeper. Emptiness. A gnawing ache that feels like your own body chewing itself. You step forward. A ladle slops something thick into your bowl. Pale, grey, lumpy. A chunk of bread follows. Then a splash of liquid, sharp with the smell of vinegar. That's it. Your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You don't savor it. You endure it. What gladiators ate. Forget the movies with roasted meats and grapes. Gladiators weren't feasting like emperors. They were fed like livestock. Their diet was built for bulk, not pleasure. Nicknamed horderi, barley men. Gladiators ate mostly barley. Thick porridge, heavy bread. Beans, cheap, filling, protein light but fiber heavy. Oat and millet gruel, sticky, bland, endless. Vinegar water, posca. Sour, sharp, rehydrating, made from diluted wine vinegar. Occasional extras, onions, dried figs, cheap cuts of meat on rare occasions. This diet built a thick layer of fat, which sounds unglamorous, but in the arena, that fat was survival. A cut into fat bled dramatically, but spared muscle and organs. To the crowd, you looked wounded. To your body, you bought a few extra minutes of life. The Lannister didn't want you lean and shredded. He wanted you padded, bleeding well but dying slow. Survival POV, eating like an animal. You scoop a spoonful of barley porridge. It's gritty, heavy, bland. You chew, it sticks to your teeth. It tastes of ashes. You gnaw the bread, hard crust cracks your gums. You dip it in vinegar water to soften it. The sour liquid burns your throat. Around you, men slurp, chew, swallow in silence. No conversation, no smiles, just survival. The sound is animal, like a trough at feeding time. You force it down, bite after bite, because if you don't eat, you'll collapse in training. And if you collapse, you'll be beaten. And if you're beaten, you may not rise. Educational aside, Posca. That sour drink in your cup, Posca. It wasn't just for gladiators. Roman soldiers drank it too. A mix of water, vinegar, and sometimes herbs. It killed some bacteria in bad water. It cut through thirst with sharp acidity. It was cheap. Too cheap for wine. For gladiators, it was hydration at the lowest cost. You hated it, but you swallowed it, because thirst was worse. Sardonic reflection. Your modern meals. You complain when your burger is overcooked. You send back your latte if the foam looks wrong. Here, you're grateful for barley mush and vinegar water. You count calories for weight loss. Here, you stuff beans into your mouth so your muscles don't give out mid-swing. Your protein shakes are strawberry-flavored. Here, your protein shake is bean paste that makes you fart loud enough to echo in the barracks. You wouldn't survive 3 days on this diet. Not because it would kill you immediately, but because your spoiled taste buds would revolt. The science of fat and survival. Modern athletes eat lean, gladiators ate fat. Why? Fat slowed bleeding from small cuts. Fat provided energy reserves for long fights. Fat created the illusion of wounds. Dramatic surface cuts looked fatal, but spared deeper damage. In short, you were fattened up like cattle. Rome loved the spectacle of blood, not the efficiency of killing. The crowd didn't want a quick death, they wanted a show. So the Lannister's job wasn't to keep you sleek and strong, it was to keep you plump and bleedable. The gas and the groans. The barracks after a bean-heavy meal is a place of groaning and stench. Men shift uncomfortably, clutching their stomachs. The air thickens with gas. You lie on your straw bed, belly bloated, sweat on your brow. Training tomorrow will churn this porridge in your gut until you retch, but you'll eat again, because hunger is worse. There is no comfort, only the cruel choice between empty weakness and bloated pain. Food and class divide, compare your meal to the Romans outside the walls. Run arcs, the poor ate bread, olives and whatever scraps they could afford. The rich feasted on roasted meats, fish sauces, honeyed wine. You, the gladiator, sat somewhere in between, fed enough to fuel, but never enough to enjoy. Your survival didn't depend on pleasure. It depended on keeping the crowd entertained. Your food wasn't meant for living well, it was meant for dying slow. Sardonic reflection. Your cheat day, you dream of pizza, of chocolate, of greasy fries. Here, cheat day means maybe a hunk of goat meat tossed into your porridge. You take photos of your meals for social media. Here, no one looks at their food long enough to admire it. They shovel it down before someone takes it. You joke about your food coma. Here, food makes you groan not with pleasure but with cramps. You wouldn't survive a week of this diet. You'd whine, you'd gag, you'd waste away while the man next to you chewed barley with a blank stare. The weight of survival. By now your body feels heavier, not stronger, just weighed down. Your belly swells but your muscles ache. Your arms are thick but not sharp. Your chest heaves with every breath. This is what Rome wanted. Not sleek athletes, not noble warriors, but bruised, padded, barley-stuffed men who would fall in sand looking spectacular. Your survival is not your own. It's been planned, rationed, calculated, and slopped into your bowl. Closing reflection of Section 3. The truth is simple. Gladiator food wasn't nourishment. It was strategy. A cheap, cruel strategy to turn men into walking sacrifices who looked good when they bled. You don't eat to live. You eat to perform. And when the day comes, you'll carry that barley belly into the arena, where it won't save you from a spear through the gut. The barley fills you. The beans bloat you. The vinegar burns your throat. And still you eat. Because hunger is worse. But you wouldn't survive this. You wouldn't last long enough to complain. Your modern palate, your fragile stomach, your craving for variety, they'd all betray you before the sand ever did. Rome knew the truth. You were never being fed to live. You were being fed to die. You wait in the dark. The air smells of iron and blood. Chains rattle behind you. Boots scrape ahead. You're pressed shoulder to shoulder with other gladiators, armor creaking, breath hot under your helmet. The wooden door before you trembles with the thunder of 50,000 voices beyond. The gate begins to rise. Light floods in. Heat pours in. The roar of the crowd explodes. Your chest tightens. Your legs shake. You don't walk into the arena. You're shoved. And suddenly, you're standing in the Colosseum, blinded by the sun, deafened by screams, lost in a sea of sand. The Colosseum as stage. To Romans, this wasn't a death pit. It was theatre. The Colosseum was their Broadway, their cinema, their Super Bowl, all in one. 50,000, 80,000 people could sit in its stone tiers, nobles and senators in the front, citizens in the middle, women and slaves high in the back. It wasn't just a building, it was a machine of spectacle. Every arch, every staircase, every stone seat designed for one thing, to watch you bleed. You think of it as an arena. Rome thought of it as a stage, and you are not the actor, you are the sacrifice. Survival POV. First steps into sand. The sand is not clean. It is dark with old stains, sticky in patches, clumping where blood once spilled. It smells faintly metallic, like rust and meat. Beneath the top layer, sand is replaced often to soak up blood faster, to keep the surface from becoming mud. Your sandals sink slightly as you step. Sweat pours down your back. Your wooden sword feels useless, your shield heavier than ever. The noise of the crowd is deafening. They don't see you as a man. They see you as part of the entertainment machine. The pain of performance. You'd think pain only came from blades, but the arena was already agony before the first strike. The heat of the sun baking in your armor. The claustrophobic weight of your helmet, choking your breath. The pounding of your heart, ribs aching with every gasp. The sound of your own fear, lost under cheers. Pain was constant. Pain was background. The real terror was knowing it was only beginning. The crowd's hunger. The Romans didn't come for justice. They came for entertainment. They wanted you to swing and stumble. They wanted drama, not skill. They wanted wounds, not victories. Your agony was their joy. Your sweat was their wine. Your screams were their chorus. You thought you'd be judged on survival. Wrong. You're judged on how spectacularly you suffer. You glance at the tiers above. Senators in white togas lean forward, shaded by awnings. Rich matrons fan themselves lazily, eyes sharp with curiosity. Commoners shout, wave, hurl scraps. And high above all, the emperor sits, expression unreadable. Your life could end with a flick of his hand. The distance between you and them feels endless. You stand naked in sand while they sit cloaked in marble. You are not part of Rome. You are Rome's entertainment. The first blood. A horn blares. The fight begins. Your opponent charges. Wood smashes wood. Pain jolts your arm. The shield slams your chest. You stumble. Sand fills your mouth as you fall. The crowd roars, not because you're skilled, but because you fell. You rise, swinging wildly, breath ragged. Every strike feels like swinging a tree trunk. Every block rattles your bones. The fight is not clean. It is clumsy, brutal, exhausting. Pain spreads with every impact. And still, the crowd screams for more. Educational aside, arena preparation. Before stepping into sand, gladiators oiled their skin, tightened straps, whispered prayers. Some kissed charms, some wept silently. But none were ready. The arena wasn't about skill, it was about spectacle. Even the sand was part of the design. It soaked up blood so quickly the crowd barely missed a beat. Beneath the arena, cages of animals and prisoners waited for their turn. Every detail was engineered to keep Rome entertained. Survival POV, the thirst. Your throat burns. The vinegar water you drank earlier feels like ash. Sweat pours. Every breath is dry, rasping. You want water more than you want victory, but the only liquid waiting for you is blood in the sand. Sardonic reflection, your modern stage fright. You panic when you give a speech to 20 co-workers. You freeze when someone calls on you in class. Here, 50,000 Romans scream for you to die, and you don't just freeze, you fall. You worry about embarrassing yourself online. Here, embarrassment isn't a meme, it's death. You wouldn't survive a single round. You'd collapse in panic before the first blade ever touched you. The agony of waiting. Even if you survived your first clash, the worst pain was waiting. Standing in armor, sun burning, chest heaving, knowing more was coming. The Romans stretched games for hours. Your fight might last minutes, but you stood ready for eternity. Pain wasn't just wounds. Pain was the endless anticipation of the next blow. Survival POV, the horn again. The horn sounds once more. Your opponent advances. You lift your sword. Your arms shake. The crowd chants, stomping. The sand trembles beneath your feet. You swing. You miss. The shield crashes into your chest. You fall again. The crowd erupts, not for victory, for suffering, for pain, for blood. Closing reflection of Section 4. The arena was never about you. It was about them. Their joy, their thrill, their appetite for spectacle. The Colosseum stands today as a monument of Rome's grandeur. But look closer. Its stones echo with screams, with groans, with the sound of men breaking. The pain of the arena wasn't just physical, it was total. It was humiliation, exhaustion, fear, despair, and agony combined into a single performance. And you wouldn't survive stepping through that gate. The light would blind you, the roar would drown you, the sand would swallow you. Rome built its greatest monument on the pain of men like you, and you would last no longer than the first horn. The sun rises again, and you're dragged once more to the holding gate. This time, it isn't just men waiting. You hear growls, the scrape of claws, the restless stomping of hooves. You glance to your right. In a cage, a lion paces, ribs visible, eyes glowing in the half-light. To your left, a bull snorts, breath steaming, horns sharpened. The crowd roars louder than yesterday. The air stinks of hay, sweat, dung and blood. Today is not just a fight. Today is a spectacle, and you are part of it. Venationers, beast hunts. Rome loved variety. Gladiators weren't enough. So the Venationers, or beast hunts, filled the mornings of the games. Lions, leopards, tigers and bears imported from Africa and Asia. Elephants, ostriches, even crocodiles dragged into sand. Wolves and boars released in packs. They weren't just animals. They were exotic proof of Rome's power. Trophies paraded before slaughter. Hunters with spears, sometimes gladiators themselves, faced them in combat. The crowd loved the sight of man against beast. They cheered not for balance, but for blood. The cage opens. You hear the creak of wood. A gate slams open. The lion bursts forward, dust exploding around it. Its roar drowns out even the crowd. You grip your trident tighter. Your hands shake. Your legs freeze. The animal's eyes lock onto yours. It lunges. Your shield feels like paper. Your body feels like clay. You stumble back, sand flying. The crowd screams, not in fear, but in delight. Your terror is their entertainment. Executions as theatre. But animals weren't the only spectacle. Rome staged executions in the arena, and they weren't quiet affairs. Criminals tied to stakes, set on fire. Prisoners forced to fight animals bare-handed. Mythological plays where condemned men reenacted legends by dying in scripted ways. Imagine watching a man dressed as Icarus thrown from a platform, or another, dressed as Hercules, burned alive in front of the crowd. These weren't sideshows. They were central to the games. Death was theatre. Sardonic reflection, your weekend entertainment. You binge Netflix, scroll TikTok, complain when the Wi-Fi lags. Romans, they bought bread, found a seat, and watched men and animals die in elaborate performances. You post reviews of bad movies. They shouted for more blood if the execution felt too quick. You wouldn't survive this society, not just physically but mentally. The shock alone would break you. The crowd's appetite. Romans craved variety. No 2 days of games were the same. Morning, beast hunts, executions. Midday, public meals, announcements, even mock sea battles in flooded arenas. Afternoon, the gladiatorial duels. It was a cycle of death, dressed as entertainment. The crowd demanded it, emperors provided it, and men like you paid for it with your lives. Survival POV, facing the beast again. The lion circles. Its paws are silent on sand. Its tail lashes. You raise your weapon, arms trembling. It lunges. You thrust. The trident glances off its flank. Pain shoots up your wrist. The lion barrels into you. You hit the ground. Sand fills your mouth. Claws rake your shield. The weight crushes your chest. The crowd howls in joy. You close your eyes, but the trainers drag the lion back. Not yet. They want you to rise. They want the fight to last. The crowd doesn't pay for quick deaths. They pay for spectacle. Educational aside. Exotic animals. The Roman appetite for spectacle had consequences. North Africa's lions and elephants were hunted nearly to extinction to feed the Colosseum. Animals were starved, beaten and drugged before release to make them unpredictable. Tens of thousands of animals died in a single set of games, a massacre disguised as sport. Rome wasn't celebrating nature, it was consuming it. And you, unlucky gladiator, were just one more piece of prey in that cycle. The grotesque joy of death. What shocks you isn't just the blood, it's the joy. The crowd cheers not reluctantly but with glee. Children laugh, women point, senators nod with satisfaction. This isn't horror to them, it's tradition. You feel sick, you feel dizzy, you wonder how anyone could watch this and smile, but then you remember, you're not a person to them, you're part of the performance. Sardonic reflection, your animal rights, you donate to animal shelters. You frown when you see a stray dog. Here, the same crowd that pets their cats at home cheers while a leopard rips a man open. You fight over ethical meat consumption. Here, they serve roasted venison between executions. You wouldn't survive this, not because of claws or teeth, but because your mind would shatter at the laughter. You stand in the sand, chest heaving, shield slipping. You look up, not at your opponent, but at the endless tiers of stone seats. There they are, senators in their white togas, reclining as though the slaughter is a pleasant lunch. Matrons in jeweled hairpins whisper and laugh, fans waving lazily. Children bounce in excitement, slaves balance trays of food and wine, and high above, in the emperor's box, sits the man whose nod can kill you or save you. The crowd roars not at you, but at him, because this is his show. This is Rome's theatre of politics. Bread and circuses. The Roman poet Juvenal once said it. The people care only for panem et circenses, bread and circuses. Bread kept them fed, circuses kept them distracted. Together, they kept them quiet. The gladiatorial games weren't free. They were paid for by emperors, senators, and ambitious politicians. Why? Because nothing bought loyalty like blood. Give the people grain and a day at the Colosseum, and they forgot their hunger, their taxes, their anger at the Senate. They shouted for death instead. Survival POV, realization. You thought you were here because of crime, or because you lost a war, or because you were sold into slavery, but no, you're here because of politics. You are a tool, a token, a distraction. Your blood buys silence, your agony buys applause. And the emperor smiles. The emperor's power. Games were not just entertainment, they were displays of imperial power. Emperors hosted extravagant festivals to prove wealth and control. They paraded exotic animals to show Rome's reach. They gave the crowd what they wanted: free bread, free shows, endless blood. Every cheer was a vote, every gasp was loyalty purchased. Every death was proof that the emperor was generous, powerful, and untouchable. Survival POV, feeling watched. Your fight is not with the man before you, it's with the eyes above. The emperor's gaze, the senator's judgment, the crowd's hunger. Every stumble, every strike, every scream is weighed not in victory or loss, but in how much it amuses the powerful. You feel naked in your armor, exposed in your helmet. Not a fighter, not a man, but a pawn in Rome's endless game of control, the price of popularity. Some emperors understood the value of games better than armies. Julius Caesar staged lavish spectacles to win elections. Augustus used games to display moral order and Rome's unity. Commodus, the mad emperor, even stepped into the arena himself, wielding weapons against terrified opponents. The games weren't about gladiators, they were about politics, about showing Rome that its leaders were generous enough to spill blood for free. Sardonic reflection. Your modern politics. You complain about campaign ads on TV. Rome gave you gladiators ripping each other apart as propaganda. You groan at election speeches. Rome drowned speeches in roars and blood. You think politicians bribe voters with slogans and t-shirts. Rome bribed them with bread and corpses. You wouldn't survive Roman politics, because Roman politics wanted your death more than your vote. Survival POV. The senator's nods. A senator leans forward, gesturing lazily toward you. The crowd cheers. You swing your sword harder, desperate, because you know your survival is now tied to his mood. You stumble, sand flying. He frowns. The crowd roars for your death. Your life is not your own. It belongs to politics. Educational aside, gladiators as symbols. Gladiators weren't just men in sand. They were symbols, metaphors Rome used. Strength and endurance for Rome's power. Discipline and courage as civic virtues. Blood as proof of Rome's dominance. Even your suffering had meaning, not for you but for them. You were a walking metaphor until you fell. The Colosseum as political machine. The Colosseum itself was propaganda carved in stone, built by Emperor Vespasian and finished by Titus. It was a gift to the people, a gesture of goodwill after years of civil war. 80 entrances made access easy. Free admission ensured mass attendance. Lavish festivals lasted weeks. It wasn't charity, it was insurance. A people entertained was a people controlled. Seeing the emperor, your eyes lift once more to the emperor's box. He sits still, face unreadable, surrounded by guards. You wonder if he sees you or if you're just another blur in the sand. Then he lifts his hand slightly. The crowd erupts. Your fate isn't in your sword or your shield or your strength. It's in the twitch of his fingers. Sardonic reflection. Your boss versus their emperor. You panic when your boss calls you into a meeting. You sweat when you present slides. Here, the emperor watches your fight for survival with wine in hand. His nod ends your life. You stress over performance reviews. Rome's performance review is death. You wouldn't survive a single glance from that imperial box. Closing reflection of Section 6. The gladiatorial games were never about gladiators. They were about politics. Your body was a speech. Your blood was a bribe. Your death was a gift to the people, wrapped in sand and applause. The emperor smiled. The senators nodded. The crowd cheered. And you? You died, forgotten, one more pawn in Rome's endless game of bread and circuses. You wouldn't survive the politics of Rome because Rome never wanted you to. You stumble. Your shield slips. A blow smashes your ribs. You collapse into the sand, chest heaving, vision blurring. The crowd roars as you hit the ground. Your opponent stands above you, weapon raised. He could finish you, but he doesn't. He looks to the stands. Because here in the Colosseum, victory isn't decided by the sword. It's decided by the crowd. The myth versus reality of the thumb. You've heard it. Thumbs up for mercy, thumbs down for death. But the truth is murkier. Romans used gestures, not words, to signal. Police verso, with turned thumb, may have meant thumb pointed to the throat, like a blade. Mercy could be signaled by hiding the thumb, keeping it still, or raising hands. Whatever the gesture, the meaning was clear. The crowd shouted, gestured, demanded, and your life hung in their frenzy. Survival POV, waiting for the verdict. You lie in sand, sweat dripping into your eyes, ribs burning with every breath. You look up, not at your opponent, not at your own wounds, but at 50,000 strangers screaming above. Some point downward, some gesture with fists, some wave scarves. Children shout for your death, old men jeer, women clap in rhythm. The noise is deafening, a storm of voices that drowns your own thoughts. You realize your life belongs to them, the emperor's final say. Though the crowd roared, the emperor often had the last word. His gesture sealed your fate. Gianation. A nod, mercy. A wave, death. Sometimes he defied the crowd to show power. Sometimes he followed them to win love. Either way, you were powerless. You could fight like a god, but survive only if politics and mob agreed. Educational aside, mercy in the arena. Not every fight ended in death. Many gladiators were spared, especially skilled ones. The games cost money, and Lannister wanted to protect investments, but mercy was never guaranteed. Even a popular fighter could be cut down if the crowd was blood-hungry. The arena was not about fairness, it was about drama, and a mercy given today could be snatched tomorrow. Survival POV. Looking at the emperor, you force your eyes open, chest heaving. High above, in the shaded box, the emperor sits. His face is unreadable. His hand rests lazily on the railing. Does he even see you? Or are you just another blur in the sand? You pray, not to the gods, but to the whims of a bored man with wine in his cup. The humiliation of begging. Some gladiators, wounded and desperate, raised a finger in appeal. The misho, a plea for mercy. Imagine yourself, broken, bleeding, crawling in sand, hand trembling as you lift a finger toward the emperor. The crowd laughs. Children mock your gesture. Senators sneer at your weakness. You thought survival depended on strength. Here, survival depends on begging gracefully. Sardonic reflection. Your public approval. You panic over social media likes. You crave hearts and comments. Here, 50,000 Romans like or dislike you in real time. The difference isn't followers, it's life or death. You wouldn't survive this attention economy. You'd die in the sand, downvoted into oblivion. Survival POV, the decision. The crowd's roar builds, half chant for mercy, half for death. Your ears ring, your ribs ache, Your opponent glances nervously upward. Then the Emperor raises his hand. Silence ripples through the Colosseum. His thumb shifts. The crowd explodes. Your opponent drives his blade down. Pain is the last thing you know. Theatrical mercy and death. Whether spared or slain, the moment was always spectacle. If spared, you staggered to your feet, bowing to the Emperor and crowd. If killed, your body was dragged through sand, hooks in your ankles, blood soaking the stage. Either way, you existed for the applause, the crowd's power. Rome's democracy wasn't in the Senate. It was in the Colosseum. The mob held the strings. The Emperor played to them. And you, in the sand, danced as they demanded. You thought your sword determined survival, but no, your fate rested in the calloused hands of strangers waving scarves in the sun. Sardonic reflection, your voting rights. You cast ballots in air-conditioned booths. Romans cast gestures in amphitheaters. You debate policy online. Romans debated your death in real time. You wouldn't survive this democracy of blood, because in Rome, survival wasn't about justice, it was about theatre. Closing reflection of Section 7. The Colosseum wasn't just Rome's stage of violence, it was Rome's stage of power. Your death wasn't decided by skill, courage, or honor. It was decided by the whims of the crowd, the mood of the mob, the gesture of an emperor. 50,000 strangers held your life in their hands, and you wouldn't survive their verdict. The blade doesn't kill you. It slices your thigh. Pain erupts, hot and raw, blood soaking sand. The crowd roars, louder for your agony than they ever did for your strikes. You stagger back, clutching the wound, shield shaking. You thought death in the arena was quick, but no. Death here is slow. Death lingers, and pain is part of the performance. The reality of gladiator wounds. Gladiators weren't killed instantly in most fights. Instead, they suffered, cuts that bled into the sand, broken bones from shields and clubs, cracked skulls under helmets, punctured lungs that hissed blood with every breath. The crowd loved it. Wounds meant drama, struggles meant spectacle. Your agony was the rhythm of the show. Survival POV, collapsing in the sand. You drop to one knee, helmet rattling, sand sticking to blood on your leg. Breathing is fire. Every gasp tastes of iron. Your opponent waits, sword lowered. He's not merciful. He's waiting for the signal. You are left to bleed, to squirm, to entertain. The sun burns your face. Dust fills your throat. The world blurs, and the crowd screams for more. Roman medical care. If you survived the arena, the next ordeal was medicine. Roman style. Doctors, often slaves themselves, treated wounds in gladiator schools. They used rumiga to clean cuts, cauterization with heated iron, crude stitches made from animal sinew, herbal salves to dull infection. Pain relief? Minimal. Anesthetics? None. If you screamed, they tied you down, and infection killed more gladiators than swords ever did. Sardonic reflection, your modern medicine. You complain about waiting 30 minutes in an ER. You panic if the nurse misses your vein on the first try. Here, your surgery is a man pressing red-hot iron into your wound while other slaves hold you still. You'd faint before he even began, and you wouldn't survive the fever that followed. Survival POV, the infirmary. You wake in a dim room, straw mattress beneath you. The stench of sweat, blood, and rotting wounds choking the air. Around you, other gladiators groan. One cradles a broken arm, another coughs blood into rags. Rats scuttle in corners. A doctor leans over you with iron tongs, his hands already stained. No prayer, no comfort, only work. He doesn't ask if you'll live. He only asks if you're worth patching. The value of a gladiator. Gladiators were investments. Training one took time and money. A prized fighter might be treated carefully, stitched and rested. A lesser one might be left to rot. Many were patched up not for survival, but to last one more fight. You weren't healed to live. You were healed to die later, more spectacularly. Survival POV, the burning iron. The doctor presses hot iron to your wound. The smell of your own flesh searing fills the air. Pain rips through you, louder than any cheer. You scream, body convulsing. The crowd is gone, but the spectacle continues. Here, your audience is the doctor and your fellow broken men. You pass out. Educational aside, Roman medicine versus modern. Rome had skill in surgery. Battlefield medicine taught them to amputate, set bones, stitch deep cuts. But antiseptics and germ theory didn't exist. Gladiators may have had better medical attention than poor Romans, but survival was still a gamble. Your survival rate. You boast about your high pain tolerance. You get tattoos, piercings, or brag about pushing through a sprain. Here, a scratch could kill you. A splinter could rot your arm. A fever could finish you before the next fight. You wouldn't survive the arena not because of the sword, but because of the days after. Survival POV, the slow deaths. In the barracks you see men wasting away. One breathes shallow, eyes glassy, wound swollen. Another coughs until he bleeds. Another trembles with fever, body drenched in sweat. No crowd cheers now. No emperor gestures. Their deaths are quiet, slow, forgotten. You realize not all gladiators die in sand. Many die here, in shadow, unseen. The myth of the heroic death. We imagine gladiators dying in dramatic duels, swords raised, crowds screaming. But many deaths weren't dramatic. They were pathetic. Fever in a dirty bed. Infected wounds swelling until they burst. Starvation when a man could no longer train. Rome sold the myth of glorious death. The reality was uglier, slower, more human. Reflection in darkness. You stare at the ceiling of the infirmary, smoke from oil lamps swirling above. The groans of dying men echo in your ears. You realize you are not a hero. You are not a warrior. You are not even a man in their eyes. You are a tool. And like any tool, when you break, you are discarded. Sardonic reflection. Your modern aftercare. You sprain your ankle and get crutches. You break a bone and get surgery. You post selfies in casts. Here, you get fire pressed to your wound, vinegar poured into your cuts, and fever that burns your mind away. You wouldn't survive not just the fight but the treatment. Closing reflection of Section 8. The Colosseum sand was only part of the story. The real horror was after the beds of straw, the crude iron tools, the stench of infection. You thought you wouldn't survive the blade, but the truth is you wouldn't survive the healing. Rome glorified the fight, but it ignored the slow, ugly deaths that followed, and you, lying in that straw bed, wouldn't survive the night. You've done it. Against all odds, you're still alive. Your opponent has fallen. The crowd roars, half in fury that you lived, half in awe of your defiance. You stand trembling, body streaked with dust and sweat. The emperor nods. Mercy for now. You stagger back through the gate. You think you've survived. But in truth, survival here only means another day in chains. The myth of freedom. We like to imagine gladiators fighting for freedom, earning liberty after victory. And yes, sometimes a gladiator who survived many matches could be awarded the rudis, a wooden sword symbolizing release. But this was rare. Most gladiators never saw freedom. They were slaves, owned by Lannister. Their contracts bound them for years. Many died before even reaching the chance of retirement. For most, the rudis was a dream, a myth, a carrot dangled before endless suffering. Survival POV, back to the barracks. The gates close behind you, the roar fades. You limp back to the barracks, torchlight flickering on stone walls. The other men stare. Some nod with grim respect. Others turn away, jealous or bitter. Your wounds ache. Your arms tremble. You collapse onto straw, rats rustling nearby. You survived the sand. But here, in the barracks, survival is slower, duller, heavier. Gladiators as celebrities. Some gladiators became famous. Their names were etched on graffiti across Rome. Women swooned over them. Children played games pretending to be them. Crowds cheered their victories like sports stars today. Wealthy matrons bribed guards to spend nights with them. Poets wrote verses about their strength and beauty. But fame didn't erase chains. A gladiator could be adored by thousands yet still sleep in a cell, chained at the ankle. Sardonic reflection. Your celebrity dreams. You dream of fame, followers, fans, adoration. But here, fame means your face painted on a wall while you still eat moldy bread. Fame means whispers from noble women, while you're still owned like cattle. You wouldn't survive Roman fame because their admiration never set you free. It only made your chains shine brighter. Survival POV. Hearing your name. One night, walking through a Roman street under guard, you hear it, your name, shouted by children playing mock duels. They mimic your gestures, cheer your victories. It feels surreal. In the arena, you're property. Out here, you're a hero. But the chains on your wrists remind you which is real. The economics of survival. Gladiators weren't just men. They were investments. Lannister rented fighters for games. Merchants sold figurines, carvings and graffiti of popular names. Politicians bragged about sponsoring famous matches. Even your fame wasn't yours, it was monetized by others. You were the product, never the owner. Survival POV, a slave in fame's clothing. You sit in the barracks, hearing the crowd outside chanting your name. Guards unlock the door, not to free you but to march you to another fight. The cheers echo. You feel both powerful and powerless. You realize survival gave you recognition, but recognition only chained you tighter. The stigma of gladiators. Despite fame, gladiators were considered infames, dishonored. When no legal rights, they couldn't hold office or vote. They were lumped with prostitutes and actors as shameful professions. So while some adored you, others spat at your name. You could be loved by crowds and hated by elites at the same time. Sardonic reflection. Your social status. You worry about LinkedIn endorsements. You stress about being respected at work. Here, even if 50,000 scream your name, the Senate sneers at you. You're entertainment, not a man. You wouldn't survive Rome's contradictions. You'd break under the weight of being both a star and a slave. A night visit. The barracks door creaks open. A noble woman, veiled, slips inside. She offers you wine, whispers promises. For a moment you feel powerful, desired, but when she leaves, the guard locks the door again. You're not free, you're not loved, you're borrowed. The rare retirement. Yes, some gladiators retired. They taught in schools, trained the next generation, even became Lannister themselves. But these were the exceptions. Most died before retirement, and even those who lived long enough carried scars that marked them forever as gladiators, never citizens, never equals. Survival POV, dreaming of freedom. You lie awake, staring at the barracks ceiling, imagining the wooden sword of freedom in your hand. The crowd cheers, the gates open for the last time, but the dream fades, chains rattle, rats scuttle, and you realize freedom is a myth that may never be yours. Sardonic reflection. Your career ladder, you stress about promotions, about climbing the corporate ladder. Here, the ladder is sand and blood. Your promotion is survival. Your retirement gift is a wooden sword. You wouldn't survive this career path. You'd collapse halfway, your promotion never arriving. Closing reflection of Section 9. Life beyond the arena wasn't life, it was chains dressed as glory. You might survive the sand, you might win fame, you might even hear your name shouted across Rome, but you would never escape the truth. You were property, a slave, a tool. Fame was not freedom, admiration was not liberty, survival was not life, and you wouldn't survive the long road of endless battles, endless chains, endless shadows. Not as a gladiator, not as Rome's pawn. The sand is empty now. The crowd has gone home. The Emperor's box stands silent. Only broken weapons and scattered dust remain. You stand alone, staring at the vast amphitheatre walls. Without the roar of voices, without the clash of steel, the Colosseum feels hollow, cold. You survived the day, but survival here is temporary. Tomorrow, the gates rise again. The myth of the gladiator. Rome left behind a myth. The gladiator as hero, a warrior of courage, defiance and honor. But the truth was uglier. Het's gladiators were slaves, criminals, prisoners of war. Their fights were not noble duels but staged performances. Their honor was measured in how well they died. The myth was propaganda. The reality was blood, dust and despair. Survival POV, imagining the future. You wonder, will anyone remember you? Will your name be carved in stone, painted on a wall, whispered in streets? Or will you vanish, forgotten in the endless tide of men who fought and fell here? The answer is bitter. Only the Colosseum remains. You will not. The ruins today. Walk through Rome now, and you see tourists snapping photos of broken arches. The Colosseum stands in pieces, its stones stripped by centuries. But its image is eternal. It's on postcards, posters, souvenirs. People marvel at its grandeur. Few stop to think of the screams, the groans, the sweat, the endless pain. The ruin is romantic. The memory is whitewashed. Sardonic reflection. Your modern stadiums. You flock to football games, to concerts, to stadiums with tens of thousands of screaming fans. Rome did the same, except the show was your death. You cheer for touchdowns. They cheered for torn bodies. You buy popcorn and hot dogs. They bought wine and roasted meat while men fell in sand. And you wouldn't survive the ticket price. Because the ticket price was your life. Survival POV. The tourist's gaze. Centuries from now, you imagine people standing in this very arena, pointing, smiling, taking photographs. They will not know your name. They will not know your pain. They will see stone, not blood. You realize you are already erased. The cultural legacy. The gladiator has survived not as a man, but as an idea. Films like Gladiator paint them as noble rebels. Novels romanticize them as tragic heroes. Modern gyms even brand workouts as gladiator training. But the reality was far less glamorous. You weren't a rebel. You weren't a hero. You were property. The gladiator lives on as fantasy. The gladiator as truth is buried in sand. Sardonic reflection. Your gym membership. Your gym membership. You buy memberships, sweat in air-conditioned gyms, complain about sore muscles. Romans. They trained men to die for spectacle. Your gladiator workout is an Instagram post. Theirs was bruises, broken bones and broken lives. You wouldn't survive a single drill. Survival POV. Legacy of chains. You sit in the barracks one last time, torchlight flickering on stone. You hear the distant roar of another fight. Your body aches. Your chains rattle. You realize, even if you live another year, even if you win, even if the crowd chants your name, you will never be free. Your legacy is not yours. It belongs to Rome, the Colosseum, as a monument of power. The Colosseum wasn't built to honor gladiators. It was built to honor Rome. Its arches celebrated emperors. Its stones glorified empire. Its seats elevated citizens, not fighters. Gladiators built its memory with their deaths, but Rome took the credit. Sardonic reflection. Your workplace legacy. You worry if your job matters, if your name will be remembered on a plaque or in a company newsletter. Here, your legacy is measured in screams, then forgotten. You wouldn't survive Rome's workplace. Your career ends in dust. Survival POV. The final thought. You close your eyes in the dark barracks. You dream of freedom, of walking away from the sand forever. But you wake to chains. You dream of being remembered as a hero, but history will not record your name. You dream of legacy, but the only legacy is stone walls and tourist photos. Closing reflection of Section 10. Gladiators are remembered not as they were, but as Rome wanted them to be. Symbols of glory, of strength, of entertainment. The truth is harsher. Gladiators were slaves, pawns, tools of empire. Their pain was spectacle. Their deaths were theatre. Their lives were chains. You wouldn't survive as a gladiator. You wouldn't survive the sand, the politics, the medicine, the crowd, or the legacy. Because in Rome, survival wasn't the point, death was.